Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'm excited to have you with us for our great conversation that we're having on transitioning your business and understanding where you're going to kind of fit into the job market in the world right now as it is. And things are changing not only day by day, but almost minute by minute with so many different businesses, and it's created some interesting opportunities for us to navigate. Let's put it that way. And Chris and I are here to share with you just some tips and ideas about just ways that you can reimagine your approach to marketing and sales right now, whether the product is one that you're representing for an employer or your own business, or the product is you as you are transitioning between roles. So Chris, you want to do a real quick intro of who you are and what you do?
I am Chris Motley from Motley Creations, and right now I'm a short order cook for my son and homeschooler, and I run a laundry service. And before that, I ran Motley Creations, which is an advertising agency where we make you look good.
And he really does. So Chris has been my partner on this effort. This is something that I've wanted to launch for oh gosh, it's probably been easily a year. And whenever I got to thinking about how I would do it, it just was overwhelming and scary. And he has been an integral part of shoving me over the edge, as well as making sure that I'm taking steps to embark on this journey of sharing content and providing value to a lot of great people. And I'm excited to have you, and I'm so grateful that he is actually helping me with this effort today as well. So I have a quick question for everybody, and I want you to just chat me the answer. But the question that I have for you as we're kicking off and getting started is, I want you to think back to when you were, oh, let's say 10 years old. And I want you to think of what your career choice was at that moment in time. What did you want to be when you were 10 years old? There you go. That's a quick question. Chris, what about you?
Okay, so that was back in the days when they go outside, just go outside.
Yeah.
I remember sitting out on the front porch. I think I was younger than 10, and the trash truck came by, and there was like toys hanging on the side of it that they'd picked out of the trash and stuff. And I thought, there's my career.
All right. All right.
Fortunately for me, that didn't work out.
All right, so I have a veterinarian on here from Azure. I've got karate champion from Kevin. Oh, Debbie, you're accomplishing your lifetime goals. Debbie wanted to be a mom. She's also one of the most amazing accountants in the world, but that's my opinion. Ooh, we have someone who would be a potential candidate for the President of the United States on the call. Donna, you would get my vote. I will just say, maybe it's not too late for you to run with that option. All right. Okay, we've got anything sports, baseball player. Okay, so we've got some really, really fun options. Now, if you think about what you're doing right now, it's a case of very few of us look at our business now and can tie it back to what that goal or that dream was when we were young. And it's funny how we have our career is often made up of a series of life events, or what I call God moments, where you may have this plan in mind, and life is what happens when you are making other plans. And there are doors that open to you that are sometimes they're a little scary when you're first in that moment and trying to make decisions and figure out what the right direction is for you to pursue. But then later on, when you get a year or two down the road, sometimes you're looking back and you're saying, okay, that was a really pivotal moment in my life. And that was something that it shaped me, or it defined where I am. So when I was a kid, I'll go back I think I was 9 or 10 years old. I wanted to be an Olympic equestrian. And I wanted to do the whole show jumping thing. And that was my goal, and that was my dream. I wasn't going to have kids. I wasn't going to get married. I was just going to be in horses. And what's been interesting about how life has happened for me is there have been a series of just decisions that I had to make along the way. For instance, went to college, fell in love, and then recognized that having a family ended up being so much more important to me, and having a life that was very pivotal around my family, that ended up being what was even more exciting and fulfilling than what my goals or dreams were when I was a kid. So today, what I want you to think about is I want you to think about what moment is in front of you right now, and whether or not you are at one of those moments in your life that I consider that God moment, where there is a choice in front of you right now, and you are looking at how you are going to make a decision about how you move forward from this day. And whether it's in a role that you're in currently, that you think about reinventing how you are working with clients. I know several of you on the call today, you've got an amazing business and you are an entrepreneur and you provide great value and an amazing service. And I know that there's a lot of folks that are looking at, how do I diversify and just manage my risk a little better? So if one part of my business is impacted, like we see restaurants and retail right now are just completely shuttered in a lot of cases, I want you to take today and think about, what are other options that you are being called to serve? And what are some of the steps you can take in order to follow that call? So that's what I want you to have in mind as we get started today, because one of the things that I found throughout my own life journey is that these decisions, like right now, I have horses in my backyard that are probably capable and they're talented enough to show at any level that I would ever care to show. So if I wanted to go to those competitions that are like pre-Olympics or working up to that, I have those horses now that we have figured out the path in order to be able to have that part of life that I found most exciting and fulfilling. And that's a thing that I want you to just bear in mind, is that, you know, we do have the power of having what we want. We just may not get it all right now. And you may want to really examine the why do you want something? Because in a lot of cases, we fall into the trap of wanting something because we think that's what we should want. So today, we're hoping to expand your horizons about this topic, and it'll be fun. So, all right, we're going to dive in and get started. All right, so I am going to hopefully stop with web cameras for just a sec, because it does suck up bandwidth. And I want to make sure that I do not kill our presentation doing anything today, because, you know, that would kind of be a bad thing. All right, so who is our session for today as we get started? What I want you to particularly pay attention to, the topics that we're going to be digging into are for anyone that is trying to figure out what are the different options available, what are the career paths based on what the market is today, and also based on what your desire and what your lifestyle needs are. And then the other folks that we're going to be talking to today are solopreneurs that are thinking about, how do they expand their business so that they can move beyond just having a job and move into where you actually have something that is an entity beyond your own efforts. So it's more than you just delivering your services or product one-to-one. I want you to think about, how can you serve one-to-many? So that's going to be a question that we talk about today. And then the other folks that we're talking to today are, if you are a business leader that you've led a team or you've been an integral part of projects happening within your employer's business. If you have been the person that makes things happen and you have recently been laid off and you're starting to look around at what the market has to offer to someone of your capabilities, and you're not liking what you see, this presentation is for you as well. So just, that's kind of who we're going to be talking to today. If you're beyond that, if you're on the call because you want to get ideas about sharing content, delivering value to your audience, and serving people right now where they need it, then you're welcome to participate in this call. And I hope you're going to walk away with some great ideas. And I will be following up with you to ask what those great ideas are. All right, so I'm going to start things out with a little bit of a downer. And I don't want to I have never been a fan of fear-based selling. I have always been one of those folks that really likes to focus on the positive and think about all of the uplifting things, but we have to face reality in order to make the right decision about where you should go in order to provide for your family. And if you're looking at today's job market and you are a senior level employee, you may be trying to find opportunities that don't exist, or they don't exist in the same way that they did before. Perhaps salaries are reduced. Maybe it's you're looking at roles that they end up being combined, and sometimes that combining of efforts creates unrealistic expectations on the part of the employer, and it sets up an employee to fail, and that doesn't look like fun. And businesses don't have as much money, and we've had this whole pay shrinkage going on for a lot of years, and I know it's a big challenge right now, but it's just pressing on us, and a lot of people, it's coming home right now. You may identify companies that look great and everything looks fantastic as far as the job, and then you go check them out on Glassdoor and you find out that they've got a really bad culture and they wouldn't be a fun place for you to work and you wouldn't excel there. Or this is what I often hear, you're overqualified. You may end up, I know folks right now that have PhDs that are taking jobs at Walmart, and they're like Zachary, who's working at Scavuzzo's in a warehouse. He's got folks there that have MBAs that are working in a warehouse. And that's the nature of our market right now. And when you think about this environment and where it's at right now, the reason you have to look at where the market is right now and what the rules of the game are and how the game is played, then you can take a step back and figure out, okay, how do I change the game? And when you change the game, you can function under a different set of rules. And today my goal is to share information with you that'll help you recognize how you make those slight tweaks. It's a lot like when you think about your approach to finding customers, or you're prospecting or interviewing for a job or networking for your next role. A lot of it is like making the perfect chili. Does anybody here like making chili? You want to do a quick chat? Raise your hand. You can raise your hand. That one works really well. You like making chili? You're a fan of that? I got a few of you who do. Okay, so when you're making chili, one of the things that I have found an amazing chili recipe, and it has a secret ingredient. And I'm going to tell you the secret ingredient. It's cinnamon. And it's one of those things that you would never think of adding cinnamon to a chili recipe, and it's a turkey chili recipe. But it really makes it sing. Well, that's what I want you to recognize about what you're doing right now, is there's a secret ingredient to what you're doing to find your next opportunity. And I want you to hopefully get some ideas about what you're going to add a tablespoon of, or even a pinch of, that will make a difference in how you're approaching this search. Okay, so I've got a really quick question here for you. And this is one I actually did set up a poll for this. So let's see if I can make the poll actually work. And it may. I'm going to try launching it, and we will see. So can y'all see the poll? It says, oh, it's not available until a poll is selected. So let me select the poll. So the poll that I am selecting is, how long do you think you will be in career transition or looking for your next opportunity? So is it less than 6 months or more than 6 months? So I'm going to give you all a minute. Okay. All right. So I got, looks like about 70% think average transition right now in the job market is less than 6 months. And I got about 30% that say that it's more than 6 months. Okay. All right. So I'm going to close the poll now. We're going to go back to the screen. So can you all see my screen now? Am I back up?
Yep. We can
Okay,
see it.
fantastic. All right. So here's the reality. In 2008, and we were in a recession, and there's a whole lot of folks who are thinking we're going to be headed for one now once we navigate this. The average tenure, if you think about, or the average amount of time it took to land a role, was 1 month for every $10,000 of income you were looking to replace. You heard that, right? So if you were replacing a $100,000 job, it was approximately 10 months in transition. So I met with one gentleman the other day, and he's like, oh, my last job, I made 280. And he really didn't want to take a step back. So what you have to think about, that shows you just the compression that's happening in the market. And unfortunately, the people that are getting the brunt of that compression are those folks that are in that management role or leadership role or middle manager role. So the folks who are the frontline employees, you can probably go find a job tomorrow. But if you were trying to replace a professional level salary and responsibility and title, those jobs have just shrunk. So that's why I really want you thinking about how you are going to reimagine what your transition would look like, and how you may think about, instead of looking at your career like a career, I want you to think about it like it is a business product, and that product is you. And think of all the different ways that you can leverage the product of you to accomplish your career goals and provide for your family. So when you think about the options that are in front of you, what a lot of us may see is, okay, so I can take a job that I make less money, or I have less responsibility. It's like my husband has been in manufacturing for 23 years. And everything that he was picking up, he lost his job in 2012. They closed his plant. And he was looking at the market and everything that he was looking at. So he was in his early 50s, and everybody's basically saying, well, we recognize that you got 20 years of experience that would be very valuable. We're willing to pay you $12 an hour. And he was literally getting jobs driving forklift trucks when he had been in positions before that he had been practically an assistant plant manager and had every role or responsibility. So the choices that he had in front of him were to step way back and just take something that would generate a not even close to level of living expense, that just lifestyle that he'd had before, or he had to look at a different direction. And he took that choice. He took that path of saying he was going to be an entrepreneur, and he picked up one of our side hustles of raising those fantastic horses, and he's run with that, and that's his full-time job. And it has been fantastic for our family. And that's what sometimes you have to look at, is you have to, instead of taking that same approach, maybe there's a different door that's open to you right now. So what I want you to think about is, just for the rest of the time that we're together this morning, I want you to remove all preconceived notions about what your right path is. And I want you to just step back and say, I've got many directions that I can go, and I want to explore all of them. And then once I've completed that exploration, then and only then will I find what aligns with my purpose and where I best fit within a company, within a role, and within the life that I want to live. And that's what I want you to do for me today. Can y'all do that for me? Can you give me a raise the hand?
Sure can.
Let me know you're in. Okay. All right, cool. Now, I told you that I hate being a downer as we get started, but when we're looking at the different options that are available out there, we have this just preconceived notion of what career stability is. And a lot of people think they have to land a job in order to have that stability of knowing day to day you're gonna have a paycheck and you're gonna have security to support your family. The reality is, and these are numbers based on last year, these numbers are going to be a lot different this year. If you think of the current job tenure of a CEO, it's 5 years. If it's a CMO, it's less than 4 years. You've got a CFO that's just slightly behind that CEO, 4 years, 9 months. CIO, 4 years, 3 months. And if you're in the technology space, it was 2 years. If you are, this one just blew my mind. If you are a sales leader, it's less than 2 years that your average tenure is for that role. And if you are a chief human resources officer or VP of HR, then it's 4 years, 9 months. So right up there with the CFO. So my question that I have for you now is, if you are at a moment in time where you're evaluating, do I go get a job? Do I move jobs? Do I pick up a side hustle? Or if you're in transition, do I go replace the job that I had now? My question for you is, if you look at the tenure that's out there and knowing what the last recession did to affect or impact the job tenure of traditional employees, these numbers are probably going to be anywhere from 20 to 30% lower as we're navigating through whatever we're going to have to face as we come out of the shelter in place order and the shutdown, depending on how prolonged it is. So my question for you is, if you take a job tomorrow, do you want to be at this same moment in time in 5 years, in 4 years, 3 months? Where are you going to be in less than 2 years? Do you want to be having to answer that question about, what do I do now? The way that you may be feeling right at this moment in time, this uncertainty, do you want to be feeling that? I mean, that's not cool. That's why I want you to think beyond what there is, because I know a lot of folks are feeling pretty scared right now. And I want you to recognize that we have options so that we don't end up here again. So this notion of career stability, what I'm going to encourage you to look at is, I think that it's an illusion for so many people, because many of us don't have stability beyond what's in front of us right at this moment. We have no guarantees of tomorrow. So what I want you to think about is, how do you live your best today and be the best person you can be today and deliver the most value to the world around you? So we're going to dig into that, and we're going to talk about your purpose and about where you are going to fit, because when you align all of this information, this is when everything just starts to come together. And it's funny, I talk about it, it's like the clouds part and the angels sing when you are in the perfect role that you are called and you are compelled to do. And the way that you think about it is, imagine a Venn diagram, you know, those intersecting circles in your mind, and it's where you have your purpose that fits. So that's what you are compelled or called to do. The contribution is where you provide the most impact or benefits to the world around you. And that part of the team is the organization or company that would best benefit from you and what you have together. So that's kind of the moment that I want you to do right now, is just take even a sheet of paper right beside where you're sitting right now. And I hope you are taking notes. And I'm also going to be sharing the slide deck with you after the fact, but I just want you to take a moment and draw out those 3 circles and think about your purpose, where you offer the most in terms of contribution, and what organization would best fit. And have those 3 circles as we're talking. And then I want you to just jot notes in those circles during our conversation that we have until we get wrapped up. And you all may be hearing, I've got a kitty cat here in the background that just all of a sudden decided she was going to get very vocal and join in the presentation. And yes, she is leaping through the air trying to attack a plant. And no, I don't have catnip. So my coworkers are going a little nuts today. So now that leads us into what culture suits you best and what type of organization, where do you best fit? So when you're thinking about culture, there are a lot of people that think culture was this reality or whatever the reality is when you take a job and you go into work and you ask the business owner what they're all about. The business owner often has an idea of what the culture is, and then you start getting pulled to the side by the other employees and they start telling you, okay, well, that's what he thinks, but let me tell you what it's really like around here. Has anybody ever experienced that? Give me a quick hand raise. Have you ever been sold on a job or told that there was something as far as a culture and then you experienced something completely different? Maybe that was just me. No? Okay, so I got a few of you that have had that experience. So what you need to think about when you are trying to evaluate the options that are out there, you need to look beyond what the stated culture is. The stated culture is what they may say on their website, but when you really dig into culture, it's a makeup of not only that environment, but also, is it someplace where you can truly collaborate and be part of a team? Who are the leaders that are part of that organization? And what is their style? How do they manage and motivate? What are some of the different things that they do that really engage and get people excited about being a part of the organization? And then, what's the motivation behind it? And motivation, people think that motivation is about money, and it's not. Motivation is often, if you look at the top 5 reasons people leave jobs, pay is not one of them. All of these other things play into what really compels people. And then that recognition piece, that's where, are you truly appreciated and do you feel a part of contributing to something bigger than you? Now, and when I'm talking about culture, here's what I want you to just have at the back of your mind. Your culture can also be the people you surround yourself with if you are an independent contractor or a free agent. So you can still create an amazing culture no matter what your role is that you're in right now. And if you're in transition, I encourage you to find a tribe or community to belong to, of folks that are on that same path that will support you on your journey so that you can be part of a culture or community. Because this is something that a lot of people don't do. And this is why no matter what transition we're in right now, whether you're in a business and you're figuring out how you're going to navigate through tomorrow and find your next client, or whether you may be an independent contractor that you've been furloughed for a little bit and hopefully you'll get to come back. But all of these things you need to keep in mind and support yourself by pulling these people around you so that you've got that community. And this is something that if you are feeling like you're all alone, I want you to look at this slide right here and look at what is it that you feel you're missing out on, and recognize that these are elements that you can add into your current role, even if it's just you. So you can be part of an environment that is buzzing in a hive of activity. I know that I end up doing some of my best work at coffee shops when we can go to coffee shops, because I like the activity. I'm one of those people that I like the stimulation and I like the contact with other grown-ups that are fun. So, there's any number of these things that you can replace, and keep that in mind, that even if you're in a role that is just you, you can still create a culture surrounding you that will cause you to be excited and compelled to go to work every day. And one of the biggest things that I want you to really take stock of at this moment in time is, if you have been in one of those dream jobs that you may have made a phenomenal income, but you were traveling 40 weeks out of the year and you missed most of your kids' soccer games or gymnastic events, then maybe it's time for you to step back and think about bigger picture. How can you have the life you want and work to live rather than live to work? Because how often do we fall into this trap of thinking, I've got a dream job, but then why do you really have a dream job? And in a lot of cases, that dream job may be this, again, perception of what a great job is, but it really doesn't check all your boxes. And now you're at a point where you can take a look at this and figure out how all of these pieces are going to fit into your next role and what is it that's best going to fit you. Now, step back right now in time and think about, who do you best serve? And I want you to go back in your career and I want you to look at the jobs that you've had, the organizations that you've been in. What size of organizations were they? What industry segment were they in? Who were your direct reports? Who was your supervisor? Look at that just general landscape and then think about, where did you provide the most impact? And then that helps you understand what type of role you would best fit, and then who can best utilize your talents now. And there are some of these questions that you're actually going to have to go do some interviewing of businesses that look just like your previous employer to understand where you're going to fit into this now. And once we finish this interview process, then that gives you clarity. And it is so important for you to have that clarity around what you're looking for in order for everything to come together around it. Because what I don't want you to do, one of the biggest mistakes that people make at this moment in time is they go start having a lot of coffee meetings with a whole bunch of people talking about, well, I'm trying to find a job. And first of all, let me just tell you that whenever you start networking to find a job, it gets a lot harder for people to find time to meet with you. And in a lot of cases, it's because people feel like they want to be someone that's helpful to you. And if they don't know of a door that's open right at this moment in time, then they're immediately thinking, well, I'm not going to be able to help her out. I'm not going to be able to introduce her to everyone. And I'm going to feel bad about that. So they find reasons to not meet with you. And that's why it's important as you're approaching the next stages, whether, again, you're looking at, do you pick up a side hustle to go along with what you're doing now? Do you find your next job? Do you start consulting or doing something a little different? Whatever it is, right now, I just want you to be in fact-finding mode. I want you to be researching. I want you to be exploring what options are out there for someone that looks like you. I really don't want you making any decisions. So even if you ended up getting a job offer to start work tomorrow, I would really like for you to take a step back and say, maybe I don't want to pick something up at this moment until I know what my path is. Now, with that being said, I want to share something with you. And it's back when I was, oh gosh, I think I was just starting my business, and I was in a commission-only role, and I was at a spot where I had to contribute to the family income. So I took a job cleaning stalls, and I cleaned stalls every morning for 6 days a week, and then I worked in the afternoons, and I made $12 an hour. And I have no shame in that whatsoever, because I did what I needed to do in order to take care of my family and provide and serve those needs. So I don't want you to look at, because I know where we're at right now. I've got clients that literally make $300,000 a year, and they are working for FedEx throwing boxes at night. And that's just a part of the life journey that they have to make right now. And if you have to do that, do that. There is no shame in it. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, I'm proud of you for doing that. I'm proud of you for looking at everything that's out there and saying, I'm going to make sacrifices over here so I can create a better tomorrow. But that's a moment in time. I don't want you looking at that as that is your forever, because it is not. So in some cases, it's better to take a step back and do that rather than take a career move back that's going to show up on your resume. Are y'all with me? And that's something that when you're making decisions, you have ramifications beyond if you land a job and it ends up not quite fitting and you're only there for a year, then employers look at that kind of stuff. And so that's why I encourage you to look at different options of taking on what that next role might be for you. And we're going to talk about those now. Okay, so let me stop sharing my webcam so I don't suck up bandwidth here. All right, so when you think about finding your next role, I'm just going to share with you more than 90% of jobs or opportunities that are out there are not listed anywhere. So you're not going to be able to go on Career Builder and find them. You aren't going to be able to, it's one of those cases of the best opportunities, they may not even know they're open right now. You may find business owners that, for instance, right now, I know of companies that are hiring senior operators, but they aren't going to put out there, I'm thinking about retiring and I need to hire a CEO to run my company. They do not talk about that. That does not show up on a LinkedIn job search. How that happens is they hire an executive recruiter that has a very quiet and discreet search. And in a lot of cases, the executive may not even know the company that they're interviewing for until they're far enough down the path for the business owner to recognize, I think this is the right person for me to work with. So that's the way a lot of jobs happen right now. And I want you to think about who would you be the most relevant to? And then think about right now, what's going on in the market? What are you the most qualified to help a business leader navigate? So if you look back in 2008, and that's a really good time to look back at your career, look at what you were doing, who were you serving, what did that role look like, and then what problems were you solving for the leader that you were working for there. And then that helps you with identifying what you're going to go explore today. Where can you have the most impact in someone's life? And then how are you going to be able to measure that impact? And all of that information, as you pull it all together, it's going to really help you with understanding what you're going to go pursue next. Because networking is probably the avenue that you are going to land your next role. Because I shared with you, more than 90% of jobs aren't posted. Well, Harvard Review shows that 94% of jobs are landed from networking. So it's interesting how that stat works out, isn't it? So all of the jobs that are showing up that you may see advertised, unfortunately, we've got all of these technology things in place that end up putting your resume in there with 900 others. And someone gets a hold of that and they just get overwhelmed by it. So you end up in this automated process where nobody really has the opportunity to explore what that product of you is and where you fit. And so don't play that game. Just don't. You know, I was telling you, I hope to change your paradigm about a lot of stuff today. That's one of the areas I want you stepping back and saying, okay, this doesn't make sense for me. Because your best opportunities are going to be found in identifying those businesses that you would best serve, and then networking and connecting with the leaders within that organization, identifying what gaps they're currently experiencing, and then positioning yourself as a resource to address their needs. Now, how you go about doing that, it doesn't always have to be a, I'm going to get a job. So when you think about positioning yourself within these prospects or these potential roles, first thing that I want you doing when you network is recognize that your success is based on the information you get, not the information you give. Did everybody hear that? It's based on what you discover. So tell me, how do you discover? Give me a quick chat. What's your discovery process? Got a quick chat here that you can do? Do you have a discovery process when you're exploring? What do we got? Okay, so yep, we want to get people talking about what they do. Now, here's the thing. What I do not want you doing is I do not want you ever going into a meeting with a, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your business. I don't want you doing that. I want you to go into your networking meetings having done your research on the person that you're meeting with so that you can ask very specific and targeted questions about their life and their business. And then when you ask those specific and targeted questions, that will help you better position or ask the questions that help you show your value or demonstrate what you can bring to them. The other thing I want you thinking about is if you shift the paradigm. So instead of saying, hey, I want to get together because I'm in transition and I'm trying to figure out, what are the best jobs that I should be looking at right now? Instead, I want you thinking about taking that step back and saying, I'm exploring what options are in the market right now for people that solve these 3 problems. And then you list that information. And then you say, and I have contacts, professional contacts, who work with people who look like you. And I also want to make sure that I'm helping you as well. So when you go into every conversation, I want you thinking about a 2-way street and how you demonstrate that 2-way street. And that's where you're going to create that concept of emotional equity. And this is what you will make withdrawals on later as you navigate whatever transition is going to look like for you to secure your next opportunity. When you think about relating your experience, how you do that is not a, oh, I've done that before, but it's a very targeted and specific, here's what I was able to accomplish within my previous role. So for example, I met with a sales leader and this guy was sharp. He'd been over, I think it was 3 countries. It was South America and I'm trying to think, there was Africa in there and then the Middle East in his previous role. And he was talking through what he had accomplished. And I looked at his resume and I said, wow, how did you do that? Because it sounded really impressive and like it was really hard to do. And normally what happens is people will say, well, I increased sales by 35% in a territory. And then when you pin them down and say, how did you do that? They get the, well, I was just willing to stay later and work harder than everybody else. And I'll tell you, as a business leader, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear somebody who does exactly what this guy does. And he said, well, the first thing that I did is I went in and I pulled all of the data together. And then I actually looked at what were the trends within given markets. And I uncovered new markets within our current clients that we needed to be able to serve in order to stop losing market share to this competitor. And this is how we identified other manufacturers to bring into our product mix. And this is how my salespeople deployed that information into the market. Now that all sounds like it's pretty complex, but he summed that story up in less than 5 minutes. And I will tell you that he is currently on the short list for a job. And I met with him 3 months ago. And the job is replacing that same level of performance that he was at before. And I introduced him to 2 people that are other sales consultants like me, and they've each been able to introduce him based on how well he articulated what he did. Now, here's where I want you to be thinking also about if you are currently an entrepreneur or you are a business owner and you are not using these approaches to demonstrate your value to your prospects, you are missing out. So this is so important for you to really look at, because whether or not you're interviewing for your next job or whether or not the product is you and your service and your knowledge that you are offering as a consultant, this is what people are looking for in order to figure out, do I want to work with you? And then the biggest thing, you recognize that this is in capital letters here. And I know you're not supposed to use capitals in communication like this unless you're shouting. So just pretend I'm shouting when I say follow up and follow through, because more than 95% of opportunities don't ever get followed up on. And I'll tell you, I have had so many coffee meetings with people, you know, like I gave you the example of the sales leader that I was able to connect to 2 other people, and he's on the short list for a pretty cool job right now. I have met with probably 100 that didn't even follow up when I made an introduction. Can you believe that? That just kind of blew my mind. I'm like, I'm introducing you to someone, and then later on, I run into them for a coffee meeting, and what I hear is, oh, well, I was kind of in the finalist list for something that I was pursuing, and I ended up taking it. Here's the impression that that leaves with me. Okay, you don't follow up. And even if you land a job tomorrow or you land that client tomorrow, if you don't acknowledge the effort that people do for you today, they won't open a door for you tomorrow that will be helpful for you. And that's what I just want you to keep in mind. Okay, now we're going to dig into some of all the alternatives that are out there to traditional employment. And I'm going to try to move fast, but I already know I'm going to end up late. So if you have to jump off right at 11:30, that's fine. I will be sharing the recording with everybody because I don't want to rush through this next part. So I want you to really be looking at the alternatives that are out there because some of these may be right for you. So the first thing is, if you are replacing a role, recognize that taking on contract work or being a 1099 instead of a W-2 employee may not be a bad thing. It may allow you to pick up multiple opportunities. So instead of selling 100% of your time to one company and making $50 an hour, maybe you can work 1 day a week for 5 different companies and make $100 an hour. And those are just some of the different things. And if a small business or any business right now is looking to add to staff and they've got particular projects or things that they're working through right at this moment in time, they're willing to pay more because they don't have to take on full-time staff in order to address that need. So it can be very lucrative. The other opportunity that this gives you is it lets you rent that job for a little bit, and it lets you discover what the company is, what's the culture, what's the leadership like, what part, where in the team would you fit, what's the dynamic, is that a dynamic that you'd like to be a part of? There are so many things it lets you do, and it can let you take kind of an extended job interview. It also lets the business owner recognize, okay, they're pretty cool. I'm willing to take them on. And by the way, you remember I said that it's $100 an hour instead of $50 an hour? Well, normally when you end up getting the job, you end up getting it at pretty competitive wages. So that's something that I want you to keep in the back of your mind as you're looking at these other options of maybe you don't want to just go pursue something that would be an 8 to 5. Think beyond the 8 to 5. Now, the other thing that's really cool right now, and this is a trend that is happening in the market. People are looking for fractional leadership to accomplish objectives. So you remember I was talking about the average tenure of CEOs, CFOs, CMOs. Now think about it, instead of taking on that tenure of a CMO of 4 years, think about if you had fractional opportunities to be a CMO for a number of different companies on a retainer basis, that they had access to a certain portion of your time or talent to accomplish objectives in their company. And when you look at these opportunities, this is a trend. You see it happening a lot with CFOs. You see it happening a lot around project management or that senior operations role, CMO, CIO, and the CIO, it's moving a lot beyond, and the CIO and CTO, it's moving beyond that managed services philosophy. I mean, people are really hiring someone to come in at a strategic level to help them assess their organization, make the right decisions, and then help them hire contractors to accomplish their objectives. Same thing happens with VPs of HR. I mean, there's so many of these different opportunities that you can think of how to just reapproach your services and what you're going to offer. And now how this relationship may be structured. Maybe it's for a moment in time. Maybe it's just strictly for a project. I'll tell you, in a lot of cases, people hire that fractional CFO because they let a CFO go and they want to find out if there were any problems or challenges or things that weren't being done well by the previous person. I mean, that's the perfect opportunity for project work because they want to clean it up so that they can hire someone to fit into that role. But by taking the fractional approach, you end up getting a much higher level of talent and capability than you might be able to afford if you took on a full-time basis. Is this making sense? Is this making sense for everybody? I hope it is. I hope you're following me. So other approach that y'all may be very similar with is perhaps it's selling your services based on retainer. And the thing that I want you looking at is I want you to think about how can you structure whatever your business is that does not require you to sell transactions. I don't know, did anybody here wake up one morning and decide that their favorite thing in the world would be to go into sales? Give me a quick hand raise. Was that your dream job, was going into sales? Anybody? I mean, some of you. Yeah, maybe a couple. I'm I'm seeing a couple heck no's. Okay, so don't set yourself up to have to continue to resell your services every day, because that's not fun and customers don't like it, and it feels icky. So let's not go there. So when you think about how you structure the relationship, think long term, and how do you engage people for 12 months, 2 years, 5 years to accomplish their objectives. And then that's where you start thinking about what that retainer would look like, where you're a part of their organization, but they only have a piece of you. Perhaps you think of that scope of work, because oftentimes what may happen is they set the retainer up, and here's what I don't want you to fall into. I don't want you to fall into that trap of somebody has you on retainer and you only have 2 clients. So you overserve those clients because that's what you have to do, and we just want to work and we want to do good work and we want them to be happy because they're paying us. And then we end up trapping ourselves because then you don't have enough hours to go find more clients, and you've set unrealistic expectations with your current clients because you've allowed that scope creep to happen. And now you're doing way more work than you're getting paid for, and you just don't feel good about it. And it's just not a fun place to get caught in. So whenever you start thinking through all of these different things, recognize that there are always things to consider beyond just the standard arrangement. So if there's a retainer, make sure that there are boundaries around the retainer. And when you are exceeding the boundaries, then it's time to talk about a new scope of work. And the time to talk about it is before. Don't talk about it when you're 20 hours over and you're going and you're trying to get paid for work that you did, that the client didn't know you did, and the client didn't authorize and recognize that you needed to do in order to accomplish their objectives. The other thing, I've got a couple of my referral partners. I've got one gentleman that is an executive agent, and he sells senior level consultants. These are people that have been CEOs of Fortune 100 companies. He sells them based on a day rate, and the day rate can be as high. One gentleman he represents it's $2,500 a day. and he sells them for 18-month engagements, 4 days a week. So there are any number of ways, and oftentimes those roles get expanded, but that guy does not want a job. I mean, he is adamant on, he is done working for an employer, and all he wants to do is do these contract work projects. But what he does have is he has a number of people, sorry about that, he has a number of people that are looking for his next opportunity for him. So while he's in the midst of serving his clients, people are continuing to keep his pipeline full so that he doesn't close out one project and then be faced with, well, it's going to take me 6 months to find my next. So the other concept, staff augmentation. This happens a lot in the IT space, but I want you to think beyond the options that are just traditional employment and look at other markets that have done this really well. Kind of like that fractional CFO thing works really well for fractional VPs of HR also. So I want you to just kind of, again, the whole point of our conversation today is I want you to expand your thinking. So think of who are the people that are going to benefit the most, where do you have the greatest impact, and then where do you live the life that you love to lead? So based on what we've talked about today, here's what I want to do for us. I want you to think about the different options that we've talked about, and there's one more here that I want to dig into, and then I want to open it up and answer any questions that you may have around which avenue may make the most sense for you. So traditional consulting is something that I know a lot of you that are on the call are doing right now. This can also be coaching, consulting. The thing that's nice about it is you can have multiple projects so that you can diversify so that you're not at risk if you lose just one company or one client. So you can kind of manage that risk a little bit. The other thing is it may allow people to take you on for a reduced scope. So for example, you know, I could accomplish a lot if I were a sales leader within an organization, but I work with on average 50 to 60 different people that at any one moment in time that have career goals that they can accomplish. And what I've done is I figured out how to serve a group of them together in a way that makes me affordable to that audience that couldn't get to me otherwise. And it allows me to work with those people that I truly am called to serve. And I love working with the entrepreneurs and the solopreneurs. And I love being that person that they look back on after they've been in business for their first year and they are able to replace their previous income and have the life that they absolutely love leading. I love being that person that they look back to and say, thank you for showing me the way. And that's why I want you to kind of take a look at all of these different approaches. The thing about consulting that is different from the fractional offering is in the fractional offering, in a lot of cases, you are the one within the company that assumes that leadership role. So that responsibility rests a little bit more heavily on you. And when you are consulting, it is up to you to do the work, or it's up to the client to do the work. I'm sorry. So that's one of the differences that you have within these different avenues to pursue. So just think about your comfort level with assuming that responsibility. So my biggest challenge whenever I've worked in an organization as a sales trainer, there were so many factors that affected the outcomes that people were able to experience that were just beyond my control. Now I'm in a role where it's one-to-one, where I have a relationship with Chris and I show Chris what he can do in order to accomplish his goals, but it's up to Chris to do it. And I'm here to support him and to provide that accountability at the level that he needs, but at the end of the day, he does the work. So that's something that you need to make the decision about also, and that will help you with evaluating which direction makes the most sense for you. Okay, so now I am going to unmute. You can also chat. Let's do it this way. I still have a lot of people on the call. Go ahead and chat any questions that you may have at this moment right now, based on what we've talked about to this point. And then I'm going to wrap you up with homework. And then I want to tell you about something pretty cool that Chris and I are working on right now. So don't run off. If you're with me to this point, hang out for just a few minutes longer. So any questions at this point? I'm going to the questions pane, hopefully. What have I got? Oh, I got a good one here. I got to figure out how to get to chat because it's giving me a whopping, I mean, literally, it gave me one itty bitty line to be able to see the chat. Aha, here's my window. Okay. Oh, of course, my accountant has to point this out. So owning your own business can offer a whole lot of tax benefits that you don't have as an employee. And it allows you to also set your wages if you own your business based on your effort than someone else's perceived value of your work. So that is a fantastic point that Debbie makes. And by the way, if anybody needs an amazing accountant, she is phenomenal. Okay. Oh yeah. Here's another comment. Over-serving is an easy trap. It's easy to fall into that. Yeah. Been there, done that. I've got that t-shirt too. You're not the only one. Any questions that you have about the different options that we've talked about, whether it be networking for your next role, doing independent contractor work, consulting, fractional offerings, anything? Any questions? Anyone? Bueller. Okay, I'm going to go back here. Let's go back to attendees. I want to also make sure, I think I accidentally muted Chris. I unmuted Chris. Sorry about that, Chris.
No problem.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? Oh wait, I may have a couple. Okay, I need to know how to find the clients that'll work with me on retainer. Awesome. I am so glad you asked. Have I got a deal for you? Is that the Billy Mays voice? That was the Billy Mays voice. Okay, so what you need to look at right now is you need to look at the options that are available and think about which one you want to commit to. And then moving forward, so here's what you have to think about before you dive in to that whole, I'm going to take on this number of clients. You have to think about how do you scale, because you have to answer the question. The big question that you answer right now, this I'm going to actually ask you to chat the answer to me, is do you want a job or do you want a business? Are you attracted to having an entity that is independent of your efforts? Meaning you can take a vacation and things still keep going. Is that of interest to you? Give me a quick chat. Yes? Okay, so I have a lot of people that have a business. Yes. So my question that I have for you is, if you were gone for 30 days, what happens to that business? Does it continue to run? Or is it dependent on you in the day-to-day operations? Because that is where I want you to think beyond a W-2 or a 1099 job. I want you to think about, how do you create a product around you? And the way that you can do that is you can do that through adding staff. So I'm going to give you a couple of different examples of what my clients have done. So I worked with an attorney that her area of expertise is she wanted to serve as external general counsel for mid-size companies. And what she specifically wanted to do is she wanted to have the monthly or weekly or quarterly strategic planning conversations with the leadership team of a company and help them recognize the potential pitfalls that were a part of their business overall and address those strategies before they ended up being problems. So she sold her service, and there were 3 different levels to it. It was good, better, and best. So good was a quarterly meeting, better was a monthly meeting, and best was a weekly meeting. Now, her participation, and it expanded very quickly beyond just her. So she ended up hiring 5 attorneys that she actually pushed all of the work down to for drafting contracts, reviewing contracts, as reading through and creating and updating employment handbooks, vendor agreements, negotiating all of that. All the actual day-to-day work was performed by others, and others were on her staff. So that allowed her to only do the work that she wanted to do. Okay, so she was able to scale and grow her business and bring on those clients. And by the way, she went from having 50 coffees a week, no, it was 50 coffees a month in order to have that, to having a total of 10 coffees a month with her referral relationships only in order to have the business that she was looking for. So when you're thinking about what you're looking to accomplish, don't fall into thinking about, okay, well, I want to make $1 million, and in order to make $1 million, this is what my life has to look like. Because at the end of the day, within her first 2 years of business, she was spending summers in Greece while her business continued to operate independently of her. So as you're thinking about kind of what that dream business, now I am on the other side of it in that I don't want employees, but I recognize that I collaborate well and I thrive on collaboration. So I have partnerships and relationships with people like Chris that we team up in order to offer a better service together than we could offer independently. And then that leads us into, it could be joint ventures, it could be alliance partnerships that make sense for you to scale and think about how you grow. Or, and this is something that I think is very cool, build products. When I first started down the path of offering online training, this was a $46 billion industry. And today it is in excess of $350 billion. So people are looking for knowledge and they're looking for resources online. And you have an opportunity to create products or services that are your knowledge that function independently of you delivering it one-to-one. And it allows you to make money while you sleep. And that is a beautiful thing. And then the expanded services, this might be where you have reseller relationships, or you work with others that are perhaps you have a 50-50 split and they do work with your clients and you manage the project as well. Okay, so we've talked about several more options. Anybody have any questions before we dig in and get going? Because of course, you know, whenever you sit down on one of my sessions, you're going to have homework because it's what I do. My goal with every one of these sessions that I do is to leave you with a thought or an idea that you're going to take and run with and make money. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to take the rest of the day or the weekend to reflect on the questions that I've asked you today and the notes that you've taken. Particularly if you made those 3 circles, I want you to look at that. And then I want you to start connecting with business leaders that are either serving the organizations that you would best be able to work with, or that are leading that type of organization. And then I want you to ask questions about what are they dealing with right now? What are their challenges? What are the what are the issues that they're facing that they're struggling with? And then I want you to open doors and I want you to help them. So those business leaders, I want you to introduce them to resources that are going to be helpful to them. and solve problems for them. And then I want you to follow up. Now, let me tell you one thing that I don't want to. When I talk about follow up, it is more than just sending out that email after you've had that first conversation. The follow up and follow through is the what happens 2 weeks after. So let's say we have a networking conversation and I introduce you to 2 people. You need to then communicate back to me that you had that conversation and what the results were of that conversation and what doors you were able to open for that person. So where you were able to help them, as well as where they were able to help you. So when you do that, that makes me recognize that, hey, this person's going to make me look good. So I'm going to keep opening doors for them. And I'll tell you, very few people make that step happen. And it's very important that you do so, because that will be, again, it's game changing with how people recognize that you truly are about relationships and you're not just a one-way street about what's in it. You know, what are you going to do for me? Walking around with your hand out. That's the thing that people are scared about, is they're always worried about, I want to help, but if I help, I only have so many hours in my day. So what will the return on my investment of time be with this individual? And that's what you just need to be thinking about, is making sure that it's a positive investment on all fronts. Okay, now I did promise I was going to tell you about something pretty cool that Chris and I have come up with. So what we are doing, and by all means, I would love for you to come and join my Facebook group that's called the Prospecting Challenge Group. Some of you may be in that. We're going to be kicking off some programming and information that is just going to happen in there. So we're still going to have our weekly webinars, but we're going to dive deeper in there. We're going to have some interviews and feature some case studies of how people have built out businesses around how they have done a job previously. And it'll be it's a fun conversation to participate in. Engage your community. And now by engaging your community, it does not mean continuing to call them and say, hey, I just don't want you to forget me. I'm still looking for something. I want you to add value. Engage with them, share with them what you're working on, what you're doing, how they can help you, and importantly, how you can help them. Fill gaps in your relationship base. So if you recognize that you're trying to get into banks that they would best serve you, then you need to be gaining introductions to bankers that can fill you in and open doors, or companies that are serving bankers. And then as far as adding more tools, if you've recognized that this is an avenue that you really want to run down and you want to build a business that has the product of you, then we have a solution to help you do that. And we can show you the roadmap that is going to walk you through from start to finish, identifying your market, qualifying the opportunity, positioning, understanding where you're going to fit, helping the prospect recognize the value, creating the content that's going to keep you top of mind with your relationship base, and most importantly, engaging those people that are going to be your free sales team that are out there uncovering and bringing you your next client. That's an offering that we have right now, and that group we're forming in the Kansas City market, and it will be the doors will be closing to it the end of this month, and we're going to launch that group. And that group will come together and it will stay together for 12 months. So we have that offering right now. And what we're also building right now, and Chris is collaborating with me on this, we are creating a training camp that will, at the end of the camp in 1 week, you will have a product that is potentially, you can either use it in your pipeline with your prospects, or it will be a product that you can sell as a knowledge product that would help add additional revenue into your business. And Chris and I are working on that, and that beta group will be launching within the next couple of weeks. And we are evaluating companies that would be able to participate in the beta. If that's something that you have interest in, just shoot me a quick email or message me when we send out the follow-ups, and I'll make sure that we share all of the details about participation in that. So we are here to help you and understand our objectives and goals are, we want to help you be successful in your career, and we want to help you be successful in your life. And we want you to be happy. You know, at the end of the day, I want you to be fulfilled with the work that you're doing, who you're serving, and the impact that you're making within businesses and individuals' lives. And, you know, that's what we're all about. And we're going to keep talking about that every single week. Next week, I'm going to be featuring, Chris is going to be running with the majority of the presentations we've done up to this point. I've done a lot of the talking. Next week, you're going to hear from Chris, and he's going to talk about building out that brand of you, or what are the necessary elements to help people just engage and recognize how professional you are, and also to make sure that what you are doing is putting your best foot forward, and it is a good representation of the brand of you. All right, we have covered so much ground, and I know I ran you a bit long. I want to thank you so much for taking time with us today, and because I know that time is precious, and I know that you're probably inundated with everybody wanting you to sit in on this webinar or that Zoom call, and you've taken almost an hour and a half out of your day, and I am so grateful. And I look forward to hearing of how I can continue to help you accomplish your prospecting goals and your career goals. So, but I want to leave you with one thought. You have to remember this. You can get anything in the world you want as long as you help enough other people get what they want. So with that in mind, I want to wish you a great weekend and good selling. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.